Yes, it's John G. Sutton here. We'll talk a little bit today on Tales from the Jails about racism in prisons. When I first joined the prison system in 1975, uh, there wasn't particularly the staff weren't particularly racist because I was at Wormwood Scrubs, you see, and the staff were from all over the UK. They had a lot of staff from Scotland, yeah, and there was staff from Wales, a couple of staff from Northern Ireland as well, and of course, mainly, this is the God's honest truth, mainly the staff, mainly were from Northern England. You know, staff from Sheffield, Manchester, that area. Of course, I was from Manchester and Liverpool, of course. My mate Paul was from Liverpool, and we'd been at the training school together. We weren't racist. Paul was an educated man, and we hadn't got any particular ideas about racism. I'd never been a racist. Been in the army, was served with all the races that were in the army. Didn't have a problem. Why should we have? I mean, basically, we were there to do a job, and that's what you did. In the prison service, we did come across racism at the Scrubs, but it wasn't the staff. Seriously, the staff couldn't they couldn't care less. Well, it didn't matter. You're just going to get locked up. It was that busy. You didn't have time to mess around with personal prejudices. I mean, how would you do that? But there was a very racist element at the Scrubs. It was mainly the West Indians, the people from the West Indies, yeah, who didn't like being told what to do at all. You know, you'd say straightforward, just like I'd say to anybody, right, it's time to get behind your door, go and bang up now. You ass-clad bastard, you know, all that nonsense. Huh. I didn't even know what it meant, so it wasn't an insult to me, it was just them mouthing off. But it didn't do any good. I mean, one way or the other, they're going behind the door. Didn't matter if they were pink or polka dot. Don't matter to me. When it's time to get behind your door, that's where you're going. With a little bit of help if need be. These days, I don't think you can do it, can they? Because they just don't have the bottle. No wonder. But anyway, that was the racism at the Scrubs. It was the other way around, and they did tend to split into little ethnic groups a little bit. You know, you had one group that was very strong was the Gypsies, and they just hated everybody. I did my best to help some of the Gypsies to read and write because they couldn't read and write, and we got so far along with the reading and writing. And then the guy who was the head of the gypsy group come up to see me. He said, I appreciate what you're doing, boss. He said, but it's not allowed. We don't allow it. They're not allowed to read and write. Yeah, so leave them out of it, will you? So that was it. That was the end of their lessons in reading and writing and arithmetic, which was I was attempting to prepare them for release in the fullness of time. But they weren't allowed to do it. Imagine that. So that little bit about their culture didn't help them at all, but maybe it helped their community because they were there as hitmen, henchmen, you know, foot soldiers. With regards to the West Indies people, they were basically just anti-establishment. You know, they'd been locked up for thieving and violence and what have you. And they definitely were anti-staff. I was pretty anti-staff myself when I got to know them. Took me a little while though. Yeah, some of the staff, you'd be anti-staff if you knew them, yeah? We had there was only one black officer. He was black as the ace of spades, and he was I believe he was from Jamaica. But he'd been living in Great Britain for a long time, and he'd been an ex-Mr. Universe. You know, he'd won the British version of the Mr. Universe competition. He was a bodybuilder, you know. He was enormous, great big fella, massive, great shoulders. And he lived on the landing, same, not landing in the prison, the same block of flats where we were in. He lived in one of the flats further down the corridor. Says me, that's me becoming institutionalised, isn't it? Referring to the corridor on which I live as a landing. Yeah. Anyway, he lived down there, and some people were absolutely against this guy. Nice fellow, I don't know what people saw wrong in him. He was a married man, he had a wife and 2 children, and they were kept at night. Somebody was going round, and believe this or not, they were posting human excrement through his door, his front door. I mean, I tried to placate this man, you know, because he was really angry. I said, listen, we'll set up a watch party, you know, we'll watch out to see who's doing this. I had a rough idea who was doing it, but I couldn't go and directly accuse them unless I got some proof, because I didn't have any proof. But he stayed there, he worked, he just cleaned it up and ignored it, and he told his wife. But there was trouble in and around the married quarters, you know, we call them married quarters, you know, it's an ex-army idea, you know, they call them quarters, but they belonged to the Home Office and they were allocated to prison officers. But there was a group of thugs that went round there. They were shouting abuse at the occupants. You know, I think it was 3 floors of flats, you know, and they'd stand at the bottom shouting abuse up to the people in the flats, you know. They shout up to the women, "Hey missus, we know your husband's away, we'll come up there and give you a good seeing to, you bitch," you know. Seriously. I went down and tackled them. The problem was that the leader of the gang, his dad was the principal officer in charge of the duty roster at the Scrubs, and he was also a Freemason. And he was a member, not only just a member, he was the chairman of the local branch of the Prison Officers Association. Now, what kind of knobheads would appoint one of the management to be the chairman of their union? I keep repeating this, but it's ridiculous to have managers running your union, because it means you've got no representation, you've got no method, no means to complain, because your only means of complaint, really, in any situation like that, is through collective representation. Because if you're head of the collective representative union is management, who do you complain to? Eh? Nobody. But racism was different at Strangeways. When I went back to Strangeways, the National Front had moved in. They wore a little curled enamel flag badge on their lapels, and they had a library there for the staff. It was provided by the National Front. It was full of all these Holocaust denial books and, you know, racism and the pureness of the Aryan race and all that. And the staff that were all into this were big, fat, ugly bastards. I mean, I was an ugly bastard myself, but I wasn't going to be into that, because I didn't actually believe that bullshit. I did actually take some action against them. I was asked by the deputy leader of the Labour Party, Eric Heffer, look it up, 1979, Eric Heffer was the deputy leader of the Labour Party when Harold Wilson was the Prime Minister, I believe. And what happened? I joined I didn't join them, I went with them to some of their meetings, and at one of the meetings I attended, I reported that David Jukes, who was the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, was the guest speaker, and they're all jumping up and down shouting, "White power, white power." One fat bastard in front of me jumped up, "White power," missed the seat, fell on the floor, pissed. I mean, this is an example, eh? What kind of a a purist little, what race that, eh? Race purity, the daft bastards. But there was a lot of racism at Strangeways, and the chairman of the Prison Officers Association was also the chairman of the National Front, the Northwest National Front, yeah. Chairman of the Northwest National Front, chairman of the Prison Officers Association, and I reported all this to Eric Effer, wrote an article about it, sent it to the Jewish Gazette. He was in all the papers. His picture was in the papers. Believe this or not, you look it up. It was the headline was Jailhouse Rebellion. John Sutton, the leader of the breakaway trade union, says that the National Front are in charge of Strangeways. All that. I give it to him. Yeah, what did the Home Office do? I mean, you'd think they'd say, good God, we've got a leader of the National Front in charge of one of our principal officer in one of our prisons. They took action. They promoted him to governor and made him the head of race relations for the whole of the northwest of Great Britain. Yep. How about that then? Believe it or not, his name was Brian Baldwin. If you look on the BBC documentary Strangeways from 1980, it shows in the third episode called Screws, Brian Baldwin, white shirt, two pips on his shoulder, standing on the central rotunda talking to the number one governor, Norman Brown. It's time, folks, for the song Ding Ding Dinger. Yes, and I'm going to sing you a song now. Well, I'm going to torture it a little bit. Let's see how this goes, shall we? This is famous by Johnny Cash. It's probably one of his most famous songs, apart from Folsom Prison and all that. This is I Walk the Line. I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep my eyes wide open all the time. I keep the ends out for the tie that binds, because you're mine. I walk the line. I find it very, very easy to be true. I find myself alone when each day is through. Yes, I'll admit that I'm a fool for you, because you're mine. I walk the line. As sure as night is dark and day is light, I keep you on my mind both day and night. And happiness I've known proves that it's right, because you're mine. I walk the line. You've got a way to keep me on your side. You give me cause for love that I can't hide. For you I know I'd even try to turn the tide, because you're mine. I walk the line. I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep my eyes wide open all the time. I keep the ends out for the tie that binds, because you're mine. I walk the line. There you go. I reckon that one won't be walking any lines for quite a while now. What do you reckon? Anyway, that's it from Tales for the Jails from today. Don't forget, the first Tuesday in October, Q&As, 6 p.m. till 7 p.m. here on Tales from the Jails. And on the 17th of October, the big interview, the 2-hour interview I did with Sean Atwood, is on his True Crime channel, so please do watch that. And this is John G. Sutton, and do like and subscribe, all the rest of it. Thank you very much.